Good to see you. I'm Dorian, and welcome to Last Call Baseball, number 159. It's the summer, and we're always receiving offers for sales, summer clothing, and of course, Major League Baseball is going to be all about that. The 2024 All-Star Game merchandise has been on sale, I think, now for weeks. I like hats, and for the 2024 All-Star Game, I'm sure you know, you've already seen it, that the hat is, they have a star on the right of the hat, and the National League colors is aqua. The American League colors is burnt orange. All for the low price of $47.99. That burnt orange and that aqua color doesn't seem very Texas to me, much less Arlington, Texas, because it's not in the desert. I mean, maybe the burnt orange is supposed to remind you of the sunset in Texas, in the West, whatever. Let's be real here. For less than the price of a hat, you can open up a brokerage account, or if you already have one, go and buy one share of the Atlanta Braves or one share of the Toronto Blue Jays. Each one of those shares is less than $47.99. Seriously, go be a minority owner in one of your favorite teams, as opposed to putting more money back into the pockets of these random, greedy Major League Baseball teams. Owners, if you can afford a $47.99 hat, you can afford a share. Maybe you can even afford 10,000 shares. Maybe one day you'll take over and own the Atlanta Braves or the Toronto Blue Jays. And speaking of fashion and the Atlanta Braves, this past week, the Braves were out in the desert in Phoenix, Arizona, to play the Diamondbacks in a 4-game series. The team split it 2-2. What struck me, besides at times the inept Braves offense again, and the terrible arms that the Arizona Diamondbacks outfielders have. Their arms are so weak. It's shocking how weak the arms are of the Arizona Diamondbacks outfielders are. But besides that, how many uniforms do the Arizona Diamondbacks have? They played 4 games against the Braves. Every single night they had a different uniform. On Monday, the Diamondbacks wore a white jersey, red hat, and white slacks. On Tuesday, they broke out their old, well, not really old now, but now it's like 2 years old, their City Connect jersey it's like a desert tan color, and across the jersey chest it says Serpientes, snakes, which I really like that City Connect jersey, by the way. Wednesday, the Diamondbacks come back with an all black uniform. And finally on Thursday, when we had that really good pitching matchup between the Arizona Diamondbacks young pitcher, he has, what's his name? His name is Faf, I think, or Faft. It's like Pfaaf, and one of those letters is silent. Anyways, he pitched really well, and the Atlanta Braves, Max Fried, also pitched really well, and the Diamondbacks ended up winning that game 1-0. But back to the uniforms. Thursday, Diamondbacks came in a beautiful outfit. Wine-colored jersey, wine-colored hat, white slacks, and the letters and the numbers were in an aqua color. And so that aqua color really popped out from that beautiful wine color. It was impressive. And I'm thinking, if in one series they have 4 different uniforms, how many road uniforms do the Diamondbacks have? I would love to see the Diamondbacks merchandise numbers, like where they are in ranking with all of the hats, all of the jerseys, and anything else that they sell. Are they challenging the Cubs, the Yankees, the Red Sox in the amount of stuff that they move, the merchandise that they move? That was really interesting, to me at least. And now all the baseball eyes are focused on Arlington, Texas, because tomorrow's the Home Run Derby, Tuesday's the All-Star Game. For our next guest, let's turn our baseball eyes across the Atlantic to England. This week I'm being joined by our special guest, Matthew Mutton, host of British Baseball Podcast. Matthew, welcome to Last Call Baseball.
Dorian, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
If you had a chance, where would you build your field of dreams in the Manchester area?
Oh, wow. There's a great question right off the bat. Funny you should mention this. During lockdown, I started doing some runs around the locality, because that's all we're allowed to do in Britain. We had like half an hour of exercise a day. It's very, very regimented. And I started doing like a 5K loop, and I found a farmhouse for sale just about a couple of kilometers away from where I live. And I was looking at this massive field in this house. And I was like, I could build a field on this. And it got too far. And I think I even tweeted it out saying, if there's any flamboyant millionaires out there. They've got a couple of million quid burning a hole in the pocket and just for life want like indulge in this fantasy. Then buy me this farm and we can make a Manchester Field of Dreams. And off the back of that, I had Roman on from the actual Field of Dreams movie site to talk about the movie site off the back of that. And I was thinking about it and I was like, if you believe in parallel universes, I bet you didn't think this was going to be a conversation we invited me on. If you believe in parallel universes, somewhere out there now, there's a version of me that now owns this farm, not knowing what to do with it, thinking it was going to be a joke, and now owns this farm trying to build a baseball field. To be honest with you, in a more sensible answer, I think I would like to build somewhere that is accessible to lots. We're actually quite fortunate in Manchester, where the Manchester Baseball Club's currently situated. It's a beautiful bit of greenery, but it's a bit of a walk. I would love to have something that's easy to access, where it can be seen by lots of people that are either walking past or just driving by, that piques their curiosity to think, huh, baseball. And then to pursue that, because that's pretty much what my goal is within the podcasting, is to try and increase participation in the grassroots sports that is baseball in Britain. So yeah, it doesn't have to be a grand field with bleachers and floodlights. It could be a park that's just down the road where kids can come and play and have fun and just pick up bats and swing and enjoy the game that's baseball.
I love it. It's a baseball field in the beautiful green grass of England. I don't think anybody else can grow as nice as grass as is naturally done in England. And when I came across your podcast, I'm like, what in the world is this? It was like looking at a just dumped out jigsaw puzzle. I'm like, British baseball podcast?
I'm so
What
glad you
is
said
this?
that. I'm not referring to the content of the
No,
episode.
no, not the content. It's just you just immediately. I'm like, this is very peculiar. And you're living in the Manchester area. For those of you who don't
Mm.
know, it's in the north of England. It's about like a 2-hour train ride north of London. How in the world did a good, somewhat Mancunian come across to enjoy baseball?
Baseball has, for as long as I can remember, now this might sound really weird because like it's not on the doorstep. Like in Britain, you see a lot of five-a-side soccer pitches, small football pitches. We don't have sandlots. It's very much soccer orientated. I first sort of remember seeing baseball on the real Ghostbusters cartoon in the 80s when Winston Zedmore, do you know which one I mean?
But I don't know
There's an episode of the real Ghostbusters.
what character is that?
Winston from you're not a Ghostbusters fan.
Yeah, I am, but I mean, I don't remember the names.
Anyway, Winston gets kidnapped. He loves baseball. He can't get anyone to go to a local like down outfield. And then it turns out that once every like 1,000 years or something, these alien creatures come and do battle to take over the planet. But it's a baseball game that's fought out between these demons. And it turns out Winston gets roped into it. So it's this human guy and all these like misfit creatures. I was like, what is this? It's amazing. But I loved it, and the name baseball stuck around. And then as I got a bit older, there's a video game called RBI Baseball 2. And I had that on a Commodore Amiga. And if you want to see an old bit of kit, kids, go and Google the Commodore Amiga. It was old. It's nothing like these Apple Macs now. You won't believe what you're seeing. And I was just obsessed with the game. I loved the video game. I was usually the Oakland Athletics because green be one of my favorite colors. And I remember just when I was going through like the different stadiums that there were, and I was just like, every time there's like a video game that came out, there was baseball. It was really hard to get hold of in this country. Same like ice hockey video games as well, for that example. But I used to buy them because I love those sports. The baseball games just really stuck with me. I loved it. I'm not a big cricket fan. Baseball always gets compared to cricket over here. It's like tennis and badminton. It's it's not really that comparable, but baseball just sort of stuck with me as this thing that I just loved playing this game of. And one of my favorite players became Ivan Rodriguez off the back of that, the old catcher for the Texans and a few other teams.
Yeah, the Rangers, the Marlins.
Yeah, yeah. And so from the back of this game, I tried to introduce baseball to some of the kids in our street. So I lived in a cul-de-sac. There wasn't many. There's about 6 kids in total. but one of the lads had quite a big back garden compared to the rest on the estate. And we had, I don't know if you had these games when you were a kid. It's like a pad, like a circle about the size of a plate that sticks to the back of the hand. It's like Velcro, and you get a tennis ball and it just sticks to the pads, right?
Right.
So we had those for our baseball gloves and the ball, and I got like a baseball bat from like a seaside resort. Funny enough, living in Salford, you had ample of opportunities to buy baseball bats. Not many baseballs, but baseball bats. So even as a kid, we had access to this baseball bat, and that's what we did. I had no idea the rules, just from what I sort of got off this video game, and yeah, I just tried to teach kids in the street how to play baseball off of no knowledge and just
The
thrown together.
self-appointed subject matter expert in this weird
Yeah,
American
yeah,
sports game.
yeah. And I was quite good at a game called Rounders, which I have over in the UK, and yeah, it was just great to sort of play it in whatever form it was, whether it's at school. I wasn't really that into soccer at school. I liked it, but because I supported a team that wasn't Manchester United or Manchester City, I kind of became very unpopular for it. So I was just like, I'm not bothered about football. And then later on in life, still having the sort of joy of baseball, I got involved in a snowball fight with a lad called Aaron. I think he was about 16, so like mid 90s. And he had the hardest throw. And I was just like, how are you doing this? He's like, oh, I play baseball. And I was like, where? It's like Bolton. That's like 15 minutes down the road from me. They were called the Bolton Knights, but I think the kids' team was called the Bolton Bears. I remember asking for a baseball glove that Christmas, and I never got one. I think Santa just didn't think I was good enough that year or something. But yeah, it never came. Yeah, I was just sort of, it just stuck around. And then even weirder for you, now this might blow your mind. Back in the mid 90s in the UK, we only had four TV channels. If you didn't have Sky TV or cable, it was just BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, and Channel 4. And then along came Channel 5, and they had baseball. It was more, they had like a lot of, before it became baseball dedicated, there was like a lot of North American sports that were being shown it. That's how I remember it. But I remember the adverts being Ken Griffey Jr. on it. And I was like, he's my guy, my guy. And the first game that they shown was the opening, I think it was the opener in 1997 between the Yankees, who had just won the World Series, and the Mariners. And the Mariners won. I was like, my team. And that's it.
That's a good guy to hit your wagon to, Ken Griffey Jr. Because I know a lot of young men in the U.S. did the same thing.
Yeah, I heard he was pretty good at baseball. So yeah, he became my guy. So yeah, there's for a lot of people there in the UK as well, that Channel 5 program on Major League Baseball was their gateway into baseball. And a lot of people that play in the UK that are around about a similar age of me pretty much owe their baseball and journeys to Josh Chetwynd and Johnny Gould. And if you've not heard the name Josh Chetwynd before, you should check him out. He's a Great Britain baseball legend.
Mm.
He's done so much to try and preserve and grow the game over here. He's got a book, Baseball in Europe, which is well worth reading. It'll tell you the histories of baseball in lots of different countries if you want to learn about baseball outside. And he's in the Great Britain Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame as well.
I'll definitely have to look him up. When you were saying that you don't like cricket, I was trying to remember my experience with cricket. I went to a handful of matches to see the Lancashire Red Roses, to see some like 2020 matches, which is like the condensed version. Because cricket, I mean, some people complain that baseball's long. I mean, cricket takes the cake. It's just,
it can take a week, and
exactly.
It can still end in a draw.
And so yeah, so obviously it's no longer an agrarian 19th century society anywhere. And so they smartly, I guess, did a new condensed version of just condensing it down 3 hours, which is actually fast in cricket. And I started liking cricket because I somewhat understood it just by watching it. I'm like, okay, I get it. Someone hits for six, it's a home run. Instead of going around bases, you're just going back and forth between the wickets. And it is pretty cool that, you know, you have like, I don't know, like Marcell Ozuna, who's an all-star with the Atlanta Braves this year. He's having a huge year, and if he hits a home run, it's like great, high five, go around the bases and go back. But what I love about cricket is that you continue at bat. Like, okay, I'm on a hot streak. I'm going to keep producing those runs, which I found interesting. And I love the fact that Yeah, I love the fact that you could just be sitting just like in baseball in a nice English summer day, which is the most. I tell everyone, a summer English day is the most glorious day in the world, but you don't know when you'll get it because just because it's summer doesn't mean it's going to be a nice day in England.
Exactly. Take your umbrella. That's the tip. It's funny you should
Exactly.
mention the T20. I actually, I don't mind T20. I went to a stag do or a bachelor party, whatever you call it, a few years ago with one of my friends, and we had it at Lancashire County Cricket Club to watch one of the games. And it was good. It was enjoyable. I think it was more the occasion than the people. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was pretty good. And fun fact, Lancashire County Cricket Club held a baseball game there not too long ago. I can't remember all the details off the top of my head because I didn't think it would come up in a conversation, but I'll find
Well,
out for you and I'll message you.
it's
It's
fine.
really cool.
And speaking of hosting a baseball game, I believe you went to the London series this year. Is that true, or you went last
It
year?
was 2023. I'd literally
Okay,
got back off holiday and it was the weekend after, and I was just skint and I couldn't afford to go down. But yes, it was the 2023 one with the Cubs and the Cardinals. It was amazing. But weirdly, it was the 2019 Yankees and Red Sox game at London that actually brought my attention back to baseball. I had a few things happen in my life that caused me to drift away from a lot of my passions and hobbies and things that I really enjoyed. And baseball was one of them, along with ice hockey and basketball, which I was really into. And I'd watched a lot of domestic ice hockey and basketball, and I'd never thought to look into domestic baseball after the mid 90s when I wanted that baseball glove.
right. Yeah, because I know there's
And
the here in the U.S. there's this I forget what channel it's on, but they actually show, I believe it's the British Basketball League, the BBL.
yeah,
Yeah, they actually
yeah,
show matches or games in the U.S. I wish I remember because I remember I just like a few months ago, it was the Manchester team was playing against
yeah, the Giants.
God knows who. And it was like, okay, cool. It's, professional, but it's almost, I feel bad for them because like they do the camera angles like in between the action or
Mm.
before the game. And it looked like they're playing in high school stadiums, but it's still great that you still have that platform.
Yeah, 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 it is good. I mean, British basketball is going through the ringer at the moment. It's probably a subject for an entirely new podcast altogether, but I hope it continues for a long time. It was a massive part of my childhood, basketball. It was so good, especially the Manchester Giants. I actually, for my stag do, went to a Manchester Giants game before I got married, and I did the half court shot, and I was terrible. Terrible is an understatement. It's so bad. Now knowing that it was broadcast across the states instead of for a handful of people on YouTube in the UK, just makes me feel a bit sweaty. But yeah, I've just always had a passion for these sports, and that's what when I saw the advert on the BBC for the London series, I was like, I can't believe I've not thought about looking at baseball, and I was looking for like where I could watch it, and it really like got my heart rate. It's like, oh, I'm going to be able to watch like a live baseball game again, and it's not 3 o'clock in the morning.
But it is, yes, you're right. It is tough to watch baseball in England, but I do remember going down to a pub somewhere in Manchester, probably like off of Oxford Road or something. I don't remember,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they had to, I guess, like tape delayed, I guess. They just showed it the next day. Like you just like, as long as you didn't check your phone or
Mm,
the computer, you can go and watch it. They showed it like, I don't know, like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something. But going back to the London series, when I think of the London series, I also think of when the NFL, the National Football League, plays
yes.
games in London. And now I think
Mm,
they play 2 or 3 games in London. And at least the way they promote it here in the US is it's a whole week of like football festivities. And apparently, like the Brits get pretty excited about it. And they have like
oh yeah.
these interactive experiences, et cetera, et cetera. How is Major League Baseball doing in comparison to like the NFL series when it comes to baseball in London?
That's a great question. I think the NFL still has the edge. And it's not just people from Britain that are there for these events as well. It's quite a lot of people from Europe that you'll see there too. It's really, really, really good to see. And I think the NFL is doing a better job of trying to grow their sport over here. And I can't really put my finger on what feels different about it because baseball is trying to make a real big effort. They're in primary schools in the local areas in London. They have the home run derby in Trafalgar Square. They're making quite a big deal of it, and it's well promoted. and it's full of passionate baseball fans. But it's not something you probably see just a random casual walking past a tout and going, "I'll grab a ticket for that." But again, the two kind of different types of sports now. I mean, American football is quite violent, and baseball's sit around with your mates, have a beer, and have a chat, and occasionally you might see a home run sort of thing. It can be more about the occasion. I don't know why they don't, because basketball's been over a few times. It's even ended up in Paris. I don't know why they just don't put their heads together and say, we're trying to grow our brand. Why don't we all work together to grow our brands and do the best for everyone?
Yeah, that's also wishful thinking because you have, for example, the NBA you just brought up. Just yesterday, they made an announcement that they just closed their new media deal for like the next 10 years, and they're going to get paid something like $71 billion, like as a whole
Wow.
association. And it is frustrating. These people will never get their heads together because they do not want one nickel to roll off the table because they want to go after every single penny. And a lot of times, basketball is in, I don't want to say competition, but it's on the same time as football. And so
Yeah.
is baseball. And so, at least here in the US, the biggest TV ratings market is always a football game, like without a doubt. And baseball, really, people only start paying attention to baseball in October during the playoffs. And so,
Yeah.
I don't think that the NFL. I love football, but I can't stand the NFL, the executive office, for lack of a better word. They would probably see their success in a place like Britain or Germany and say, "This is our secret sauce. Why would we want someone else to come in on our turf?" That's the reason I think that these three major American sports brands would never get together to make each other more money.
Yeah. That's fair enough, I suppose, when it's competition. But yeah, I do think that they could all learn from just even watching what they've been doing. Like most people, it was a very good podcast over here called Bat Flipping Nerds. Excellent, excellent baseball podcast. They were saying not too long ago, like Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge could walk down the street and no one would know who they were. But Victor Wembanyama is instantly recognizable. There's marketable players in all these sports. So why are they not doing it? Where's the Ken Griffey Jr. video game for the Super Nintendo? Where's the 2024 version of that? I mean, play MLB the show, and you have Vladdy on the cover this year, but it's not Vlad Guerrero Jr.'s MLB the show. Where's the Ken Griffey Jr. here? Where's the 2020? Where's Shohei Flakes? Give me some Otanios or something. You know what I mean? I want to see
The
these
Otani
superstars.
Oreos.
Yeah, there you go. These things could happen. And I'm some numpty in Manchester, and I'm thinking these things. Why aren't we not seeing these people being promoted like they are, like the superstars that they are?
That's a good question, but at the same time, you know as well as I do that that's something that the MLB has been trying to scratch their heads now since basically Ken Griffey Jr. was with the Cincinnati Reds, and he wasn't as big of a superstar with the Reds as he was with the Mariners because they tried to. Everyone was saying when Mike Trout was the greatest player in the world for all those years, they were like, why isn't Mike Trout making it? First off, apparently he never made an effort, the center fielder for the Los Angeles Angels, and that just wasn't in him to be out there promoting his brand, whatever. But Shohei Ohtani, at least, he's probably an unknown person. He's probably just a really big dude, Japanese dude walking around like Britain or on the
Yeah,
continent. But in Asia, he probably can't go anywhere. Like in
yeah, that's true.
South
Yeah,
Korea, in Japan, certainly here in the US and in Canada, maybe Mexico, but because they are having a burgeoning baseball culture. But you're right. And that's only because that's organic because Shohei Ohtani is an absolute freak. He's an alien. Like he's not even from this world. But it almost takes that sort of level of person, which they come along once every 15, 20 years to do. And yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things MLB does wrong with their promotion and advertisement and their media as well, because they're the way, at least here in the US, the way they distribute the product, the games is all messed up. It's like in bankruptcy court and all that stuff. It's very boring in business, but yeah, I mean, who would you promote? I mean, there is a lot. There's so many players. Ellie De La Cruz. You
anyone
have
that the kids find
O'Neal Cruz.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
O'Neal Cruz, Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, MLB has to do better.
indeed, indeed. If only we were the commissioners, eh?
Or the assistants or the special advisors. I love soccer right now or football. There's
Mhm.
the European Championships. England is playing against Spain on
I
Sunday.
know.
Fantastic.
in the final as well.
in the finals, no more, no less.
If you asked me at
And
the group stages, I would have laughed at you.
of what?
If you'd asked me if they're going to do that when they're in the group stages, I would have laughed at you. Played
Oh yeah, they've been.
awful.
The Spain has been by far the best team in the European Championships. And England finally, in the first half of when they played Netherlands, they actually
Yeah.
played really, really exciting well.
Mm.
But on the same theme of like soccer, football, those who follow European soccer know that if a club identifies a young talent, they can sign
Yeah.
him at 14, 16 years old.
Hmm.
And in the US, you have to get drafted into Major League Baseball. So you basically have to be at least 18 years old.
Yeah.
Unless you're an international player, usually in the Caribbean, then they sign you at like 15. But how is it in Britain? If how does a club, is that even possible to make a living being a professional baseball player in Britain? Or how does that work when they
It
roster out
base
the clubs?
Yeah, baseball isn't professional in the UK. It's amateur, grassroots, passionate, volunteer driven. Some of the greatest bunch of people you'll ever meet in your life. Like you can ask people, you walk down the street and you say, "Do you know where your local baseball club is?" 20 people are going to say no, 30 people are going to say no, and one person will say yeah, and they'll be your best mate for life, and they'll have one of the most. You either know about it and you're extremely passionate about it, or you may have heard of it in passing, but you won't have known it's in the UK. The fan base in this country for the teams is incredible. I know a guy who's part of the Liverpool Trojans setup called Ian. He is part of a podcast called Dodging Sleep, and it's UK based LA Dodgers fans, and they watch the games live. So all hours of the morning, and then go straight to work the next day. You won't catch many people doing with soccer being as big as it is in this country.
I'm gonna have a
If there's a
look.
game on at 4 in the morning, I guarantee not a lot of them will stand up watching that game.
I'm gonna have to look these guys up because when you were talking about cricket earlier, I do distinctly remember at one of the matches I went to for Lancashire Cricket Club. There, I still remember this. This was years ago. There was a gentleman there with the LA Dodgers hat, and he
Mm,
was. I mean, he was talking. Back then, I was like barely following baseball. Like it's kind of like you. Like you loved it as a kid. You had other things happen. You fell out of passion, and then the past 10 years, I've been totally passionate about it. That guy might even be it, or one of those guys, because I remember it was LA Dodgers, and he was like, he knew everything about everything, and me and my American friend were like, okay, we can only talk so much about baseball because we're not really following as much as you.
that
Yeah, I so distinctly remember that.
would have been one of the worst days of his life as well. Like finally an American that can talk to it, and he doesn't like baseball. Damn it. Ah, what a shame.
No, yeah, I certainly liked it. It just wasn't like to the depths of I am now, and certainly
Mm,
where he was back then.
that's
Oh,
brilliant.
talking with you, reflecting on some of what you had said immediately, I almost feel that in Britain, baseball is at a juncture potentially where soccer, specifically English football, was here in the US. I want to say around the early part of this century, as crazy as it sounds, is actually true. Early part of the century, it was kind of watching English football. You'd had to get up to go to your. It was always an Irish or an English pub. They would show the matches at like 6 a.m., 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday. It was an underground movement because you knew, and it only was, no offense to any listeners, but it was only until about close to like the ends of the aughts where you saw more and more people wearing Arsenal kits. You're like,
Yeah,
wait
yeah,
a minute,
yeah.
wait a minute, wait a minute. You are on that wave after us because personally, I'm a Man City supporter, but before the Sheik spot them, by the way. And
Yeah, they always get that in there, Man City fans.
yeah, and so maybe it's that point where that crest is coming soon.
Mm.
If it's underground, if I think you've named 3 other British baseball podcasts that I need to check out, and so maybe that's my initial thoughts on.
Yeah, there's also Ball Cats and Bagpipes, Scottish baseball
There you
podcast.
go,
Get on
4.
that too.
Now we got to get Wales on board now.
Indeed. There's only currently one team in Wales, and that's Cardiff Malins. But they're part of the wider. They play a lot of their baseball in the south
Right,
west.
Southwest. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, you've only got like, for example, we were talking about the London series before. When I was there in 2019, I walked around the place just talking to families about baseball. And again, a lot of them didn't know about baseball in the UK. And part of my podcasting was I was trying to promote British baseball and talk about British baseball. So I was helping people find local clubs on the Baseball Softball UK Team Finder app. I was walking around my phone, where you from? Here's your local team. Get in touch with so and so, introducing people to who do we need to speak to. There was so many people there from all over the country. The highest parts of Scotland, all the way down from other parts of Europe, converging in one place to watch the Cubs and the Cardinals. Not a lot of people are Cubs and Cardinals fans per se. I mean, not saying that there aren't lots of them there, but people there just to watch baseball. It was massive. The place was heaving. It was
Love
full,
it.
full of it. And Bill Murray was there as well. Peter Venkman was a couple of rows behind me and nearly wet
Ghostbuster.
myself. Nearly wet myself.
God, I hope you didn't leave that plasma on your seat. So,
Oh dear,
clean
no.
up after yourself.
It's a family friendly show. I may have
Exactly.
very nearly made a very inappropriate joke.
Earlier, you had said, MLB's promotional issues, but if we were to make you the new commissioner of Major League Baseball, what's one or two things that you would change? And you could do anything you want because you're the commissioner.
Oof. I would make every team have a facility for minor league players to live in, like a hotel or some sort of complex for them to eat well, train well, and not have to worry about sleeping on someone else's floor with 5 other people. I don't know how, it's been a while since I've looked into it, but I know there were a lot of issues with minor leaguers, especially before the draft got shortened, where they're just eating the worst food. And he's supposed to be like pro athletes, bad diets, horrible living conditions. I would just think though, the job opportunities that would create in local areas. You're a Major League Baseball team, you've got a single A, double A, and a triple A team. That's 3 sites across an area where you've got people that can work in construction. You could train people working on game days. You could do a lot of good for that area. Billionaire owners are going to hate me for this one because you are emptying your pockets. And not only that, I would have women's teams formed as well. So like using the soccer sort of idea over here, where a lot of teams do have a women's club with their men's senior team. I would have Major League Baseball clubs have a women's baseball team. So it's not just, I mean, you can watch the games on TV. You probably have access to a stadium where you can go and watch live baseball better than the once or twice a year I get to do it down at London if I get the opportunity. But it's going to be a lot of crowds, mixed families, little boys, little girls, mum and dad, or guardians going and watching these games. They'll have heroes. But how special would it be for that little girl to not have Nolan Arenado as a hero, but the new generation of Rockford Peaches? There's so much money in the game. We have to do better at promoting female athletes in every sport because there's little girls and little boys can have female heroes and role models as well. Like Rey from Star Wars is one of my son's favorite Star Wars characters. It's awesome. Awesome characters. Great athletes should be great role models for little kids. And having a Mother's Day, like one day a season where I just wear pink, is that really doing enough? I see ladies teams. Let's get a next generation of young athletes out there. Is there anything else I would do? Oh yeah, do you know what else I'd do? While these billionaires, I should say, I've got a few extra quid left in the pocket if I've not completely emptied the bank accounts. I'd look at the bigger spectrum. Like the London series is a fantastic spectacle, but it's very much Major League Baseball promoting Major League Baseball in the UK. They do have some things where they've gone to like primary schools and built mounds and had players go and do like catch sessions. The Yankees famously went over to the London Mets team to do some stuff there. But there's teams up in Scotland, there's teams up in Newcastle, there's teams up in Liverpool, Sheffield, all over the country. Why not, if you're going to one of these countries, just try and donate some equipment you don't need anymore. Throw a few quid in the kitty. There is like the British baseball, like Wembley is in Farnham Park in Slough near Legoland Windsor. And I believe that got some MLB funding. Don't hold me to that, but I think that may be true. And that's great. But that's one facility that's used by baseball and softball, and it's used well. But couldn't there be that? I know this is all hypothetical, but I would definitely get some money in other clubs and sort of help them out a bit more. Just promote the sport. If you're going to another country, help promote their grassroots sports.
You mentioned about owners building housing, basically. They do that in the Dominican Republic for
Mm,
these kids we were talking about earlier that when they sign them at 15. So basically, it's kind of like a boarding school, but that's almost too
yeah,
generous. It's they're supposed to teach them a little bit of English, basically give them some form of education, and obviously their full-time job at 15, 16 years old is to be a really good baseball player. And you're right. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to do that. And it's not so much a cost because a lot of these billionaires would be like, we're just going to do real estate. So we'll just build housing that can also double as normal rent or condos. But within
yeah,
the building, 40 of them are ours. So for players, for staff, etc. I do
exactly.
like, and then that's the way you pitch it to them to be like, oh, okay, it's a real estate play, not a we're giving housing. And you're saying about very rightly the crappy food that was being provided to the minor league players, and up until about 2 years ago when they were giving a higher monthly stipend or something. I remember talking to a writer over at Baseball America, and he was saying one of the basic reasons why a club like the Los Angeles Dodgers seem to have a never-ending conveyor belt of really young, good prospects, they actually feed them really good food
Yeah,
and they're able to develop faster. Everyone else is like, well, we hope he can survive off of convenience store hot dogs and whatever. And they're like, no, we understand it's not just how you play your coaches, it's what you put in your body. So I'm on
exactly.
board on your changes, Commissioner.
Yeah, but if prisoners are getting better fed than your elite star athletes of the future that you want you to make millions of pounds or millions of dollars, I think you might be doing something wrong.
Definitely. And yeah, absolutely. When we go back to
Hmm.
Britain, go back
Mm.
to England. Yeah, Britain, because you said they're playing baseball in Scotland, Wales, and
Yes.
in England. Who knows about Northern Ireland, but I'm sure they're going to get
Yeah,
on
there's
board.
baseball in Northern Ireland. Shout
Soon
out to
enough, there you
Belfast
go.
Stars.
So when we go to the UK,
Yeah,
but specifically to go see it in the Manchester area, what's some
yeah.
places beyond watching baseball so we can get a nice pint, some food, maybe some tea that you enjoy going to in the Manchester Salford area?
Yeah, well, the question would have been a lot different 7 years ago before as a dad, because now I've got a son. It's where does the best chicken nuggets, and that seems to be the place to go. But there are lots of really cool places to go in Manchester and Salford. Manchester has such a wide, diverse range of cultures. There's something out there for you. For me, I really like the sports bar that's in Manchester in a place called the Printworks. It's like a cluster of bars. That's where we regularly go and do our like fantasy NFL drafts. And there, because you can just get plates of chicken wings and half decent burgers. Basically, if it does a good burger, I'm all over it. I'll do like a good burger. But places that I used to go like Sinclair's Oyster Bar near Victoria train station for like beers that were not Budweiser and Carling and Foster's and brand stuff. That used to be really good. A place called Hawksmoor Steakhouse in Manchester. I think that's become a bit of a, it might be a chain, but again, really nice, really good steaks, really good food. Samsi, a Japanese restaurant on Whitworth Street, is one of my favorites. And more locally in Salford, near where I live, is a place called the Grand Valley, which is a curry house. Fantastic food, fantastic staff, and it's a great place for families to get together and you socialize and have a great meal and have a really good time. So yeah, I find that if you like small food balanced on top of small food that's presented to you on like a slate or a piece of wood, then there's loads of restaurants like that now.
For the low price of 80 quid a plate.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Where are some of your favorite places to go?
Oh, I was going to ask you is the Northern Quarter, does it still have like very
Yeah,
like nice like
yes.
cafes? They have those
Hmm.
quirky little stores. Yeah, I remember it was a fusion restaurant. I believe it was Malaysian and Thai. I want to think
Yeah,
it was in the Northern Quarter, and that was my favorite restaurants. And there was also another Indian restaurant that they only had two locations in England. It was one in Manchester. It was like to the east of like the science and technology buildings for the University of Manchester.
Right? Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then they had the other that same restaurant had another location down in London. And it was like famous around the country. You get great reviews. I wish I remember
Mm.
what it was, but that was
Something
one of
like
the best.
Akbar's or something like that.
Hmm?
Could it be something like Akbar's? I remember them being really
No, no, that sounds like something you would
niche.
find on on Curry Mile.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But again, Curry Mayo, like a stretch of just Indian food and takeouts in Rush Home. I'd say, but
BYOB. It's glorious.
yeah, and you mentioned the Northern Quarter. If there's like fancy cocktail bars there where there's like a fake laundrette and you have to press like a phone to get let in, and the door opens. It's very James Bondy, and you go in and it's fancy cocktails that are all smoke and mirrors and cost you £15, and that get served to you in a pipette. Just crazy ass drinks. And if you're into that sort of stuff, it's there for you. For me, one of my favorite places is called Grand Central, and it's on Oxford Road. It's a metal bar, pool table in the corner. You have live bands on. It's right underneath Oxford Road train station, and that's been a place I've been to for years. But a lot of really good nightclubs and bars and stuff are closed down and become like supermarkets and stuff nowadays. Yeah, it's a shame. Like Jilly's Rock World and stuff like that, all gone.
Yeah, there was in City Center. It was like an old, I think it used to be an old hotel, and they had like it wasn't a speakeasy. It was just a hotel bar. A friend of mine took me there for apparently they had like some of the best gins like in the city or in the
Mm,
area. What I love about Manchester is it's like an affordable cosmopolitan city.
yeah.
Whereas in London, you think of anything, you'll have nine options of it. Like I love the theater. Well, you have a dozen theaters. In
Yes.
Manchester, you'll have two or three. But the
Mhm.
point is, they'll have at least one or two or three of everything you want, and It's much more walkable. You don't have to be taking the tram everywhere or the
Yeah.
what was it? What was the magic the
The
magic
Magic
bus?
Bus, 50p.
Yeah, no, when I was there,
That's like what,
it was a
50
quid.
cent for a bus
But then
journey. Yeah.
if you wanted to be posh, then you took I think it was Stagecoach, and that was like £2.50, which was insane.
Mate.
It was
If
like
if you're getting a bus at 2 o'clock in the morning to go anywhere, you ain't posh.
exactly
But it was a cozier way of traveling. They had like air conditioning on it, or at
right.
least a leg room.
Yeah,
Yeah, they had to feel like cattle, like on the Magic Bus. God bless the Magic Bus. Wow, that takes me back.
yeah.
Many an
That
adventure on the Magic
fuels the
Bus.
students. The yeah, that fuels. That's like the this almost like the uni bus.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. 100%. And plus, Mancunians are some of the best people in the world.
Oh yeah,
No,
yeah. You're right, and I
definitely.
loved that when ultimately the terminal was I forget what the actual terminal bus when you get into city center when you're coming south to the north
Yeah, yeah.
what is that
Um,
Barnsdale or what I forget whatever the main bus stop is there
yeah, the
in
Arndale, Manchester Arndale.
and it was a match day and United's playing at home. Of course,
Mhm.
those of you who don't know, Manchester United does not play in Manchester. They play
Oh, you're going
in
to upset a lot of people.
but it's true. And what I loved was there was a man with his son, like probably was like I don't know 7 years old, and they were in front of the Manchester map at the bus stop trying to find Old Trafford.
Nightmare.
It's like
Nightmare.
you're in the wrong place. Like you could totally tell this person was not a Mancunian. Like you're I
Yeah.
don't know.
It kind of is in Manchester. It's in a borough of Manchester called Trafford. It has a M for its postcode, so technically it's Manchester. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. I can't laugh though. I'm a Bolton fan and they play in Horwich, so people always like our rivals rip us for that too. But it is amusing. I mean, yeah, it's the football teams are not too far apart from each other, but
But you
match
can actually
days in the
walk.
town.
You could walk back then. It used to be called. It still used to be called City Stadium or City of Manchester Stadium until they
Yeah,
changed
yeah.
it to Etihad. You can walk to
Mm,
City Stadium slash Etihad from the Northern Quarter in like I forget like 20 minutes or something. You can't
yeah,
do that at Old Trafford.
no, no, you can't. But I'm not getting into football rivalries. I refuse. I didn't go for that when I was in school, and that's why I left it. But
That's
yeah, it's fantastic. It just goes to show that the as I said before about the multicultural nature. Manchester is just full of fantastic people, fantastic places, fantastic food, fantastic sports. You know, there's something there for everybody. If you're into something, you'll find it in Manchester.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we can ask the Sheik, because I don't know about now, but they're back then they were just starting to develop that area around city center.
You've done a
I mean,
great
not city
job with
center.
it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's really well done now.
Right. But
Really well
I
done.
remember even to the east of that, it was like all Browns. What is it called in England? Brownsfield. It was
I
like
don't know.
just straight, like there was just nothing to the east of a city stadium where Manchester City
Hmm.
plays.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll write an email to the Sheik in Dubai and ask him to do Manchester City Baseball Club,
Great
because
on
they
you.
have the money to do it, and to do it well.
Mm-hmm. You got facilities. They've just opened up another live music venue there that rivals the arena that they've got. So there's land. Don't know how much there is of it, but yeah, ask him. Ask him
That's
for
ins-
a
wait
few quid
he
to Manchester to
the
play as
the
well.
the city just did another arena, like I don't even know what's it called
Hmm.
anymore. The Emmy, it used to be called the MEN, but I don't know what's it
Yeah,
called
the
anymore.
MEN's still there. I think that's called the AO Arena now. But now this is the Co-op Live Arena.
That's insane though. I mean, these
Hmm.
places are probably like a 20-minute car ride away.
Yeah,
Wow. Well, I hope they have enough. They've booked enough people there.
there's enough. They had a few issues when they opened. It'd be worth looking into if you want to have a giggle.
I'll have to
I'm
look
not.
it up.
No, that's not fair because a lot of people put a lot of hard work into getting that thing to work, but the arena did come to bail them out for a few gigs.
It's good to know. I'll have to look into it. I can't wait to go back to Manchester and try out all the places you mentioned and see if some of the
Mm.
places I used to go to are still there. Highly, highly doubt.
It's very confusing. Like you'll go down one way street one week, and then 2 weeks later, it's the other way around, and other things have been built. It's just evolving constantly, but it's still got its great like architecture of old looking buildings
Right.
with the new looking buildings too. It's just a beautiful city.
Yeah. Yeah, it is definitely. And Matthew, I want to thank you for joining me. I really enjoyed this conversation. Let us know where we can find your podcast and also anything on social media you want to share with us.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, Dorian, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been a fun experience being on the receiving end of the questions. And I've really enjoyed it. You're a fantastic host. This has been an absolute pleasure. I can be found at Brit Baseball Pod on most social medias. And if you look for British Baseball Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from, it's also on YouTube as well. You'll find a bit more about the show there. It's a lot of interviews with people within the sport, a lot of volunteers, trying to get history and memories documented and logged on the way. That's the vibe of the podcast. Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you to Matthew for joining us this week. And in honor of Great Britain, in honor of England, I've been drinking a rum from the Caribbean because we started off the show talking about summer sails and we think about beaches and lakes and pools. I drank a 10XO rum, which means it was just aged for 10 years, from Westerhall Estate in St. David's, Grenada, a beautiful little island in the Caribbean. Everyone should go, especially in the wintertime. And I don't think that they actually play baseball in Grenada. That doesn't mean that they can't start. But maybe Grenada can team up with another Caribbean baseball superpower, Curaçao. And maybe some of the Grenadian players can play for Curaçao in the World Baseball Classic, which is returning in 2026. I'm very excited. If you remember, we're talking about cricket. In the world of cricket, Grenada is part of the West Indies. And I think most of the teams, most of the countries in the Caribbean are make up of the West Indies, like Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago. So they're able to just vacuum up all these phenomenal cricket players in the West Indies in the Caribbean. And in the international competition, the West Indies were phenomenal in I believe the early 80s. They won I forget how many consecutive world championships. Anyways, enjoy your rum, enjoy your summer, enjoy the All-Star game. Check out our merchandise, which is much cheaper than $49.99 or whatever they're selling these hats for. Social media, all that stuff. Thanks for listening to Last Call Baseball. Be great and get home safe.